All right, so this session we're going to be talking about AI-driven content discovery with Channel Ready Renditions. And we have here, so I'm from the assets team, digital asset management. We have these prizes, these damn beavers, that we're going to be looking for whoever's the most engaged while we present. We're going to be handing these out afterwards. So my name is Matt. I'm going to be presenting with Deepa for dynamic media and Mathias for content fragments. So when we talk about discovering content, before even introducing AI, we had a concept of a user manages assets by organizing them into folders, and we have a micro front end called the asset selector. So the asset selector is available in the modal form or the rail form, and it allows you to go and select your assets. But one of the major problems with the asset selector is that for the users that are not the ones organizing or managing the files, it's difficult to find the perfect asset for their use case. That's why we've started exploring with Content Advisor, powering this asset discovery process with AI. Now we have recommendations that are going to be relevant to whatever application a user is working on. Be that first party, we have integrations with Express, Workfront, throughout the Adobe ecosystem. And we also have third-party integration capabilities for Content Advisor. When we say Gen AI, there's a lot of different components that went into building the Content Advisor. The first is a powerful semantic search that takes natural language queries. So you don't have to know an exact metadata property or keyword. You can just describe what you're looking for, and we're going to surface content that is relevant to that natural query. We also now support a document brief as input. So if a user has a PDF from a marketing workflow or other content supply chain workflow, they can drop that directly into search, and it will perform a search and get relevant assets and content fragments related to that document. Suggested content is one of the most powerful new features that we've added to Content Advisor, and we've made it extremely developer-friendly. So whatever applications you're using Content Advisor, you can pass in context that will provide some ready-to-use recommendations out of the box. I'm going to show a really simple use case with a rich text editor that gets spot-on recommendations every time. Dynamic media. Deepa's going to dive deep on dynamic media, so that'll be super interesting. And Mathias is going to go deep on content fragments and the full power of having a unified experience that brings both assets and content fragments to a single surface. Not only do we have assets and content fragments, but all of the saved data that you have in AEM or in the author environment is available now in Content Advisor. So your saved searches, filters, and metadata will be readily available without any developer configuration required. It all happens on the user level. And lastly, in order to organize and manage this content, we have the full collection support, including that semantic and rich search experience. So now I'm going to dive right into this demo. So up here on the screen, I have a rich text editor that has a blog post that I've been working on called The Art of the Morning Coffee. Without knowing exactly where the asset resides, I can just click on this, and it brings up Content Advisor, and it's pre-populated with recommendations that are relevant to the content of the document that I've been working on. I can select this asset, and it's ready for use. So as this content changes, these recommendations update in real time, and it almost feels instantaneous, the speed of which we get those new recommendations. So not only do people not need to know where these assets are, but they're going to be available for consumption immediately in both first and third-party contexts, like I mentioned. If we change a property to the Content Advisor, we can change it from a modal form factor over to a rail form factor. The rail has the advantage that a user can simply drag and drop assets and use those directly. This is how we integrate with Express, but also third party. The micro front end has a callback. It has some unique technology because this is within an iframe, but we're able to pass this information across the frame. Going back to the modal, I want to show the power of semantic search, where previously, if you tried a query in a different language and it wasn't matching the metadata or the properties that were in the given locale for the asset, it wouldn't be able to find any results. I'm going to perform this search in Spanish, and even though none of these assets are explicitly tagged in Spanish, it's relevant to the intent in whatever localized language I used to perform the search. Over here, I have saved searches that are available from Assets View, so anything that I've worked on in the author environment is instantly available within Content Advisor. Deepa's going to show some of the cool power of dynamic media, but inside of our new quick detail panel, we have a much richer experience. Previously, we just had a popover. The quick detail panel gives you a full mini viewer experience for assets and content fragments, as well as the saved metadata forms that you've worked on. Switching back over to the slide deck, I want to show just how easy it is to enable these Content Advisor features, whether you're coming in fresh to the asset selector or haven't installed it yet. Inside of Asset Selector, we've added some new properties. So there's a feature set where if you pass Advisor, that instantly enables the recommendation section. If you pass in content fragments, you have an additional tab where you have a unified surface that shows assets and content fragments. The recommendations are powered by a property that we call the external brief. And this external brief can be any type of unstructured text content. Simply describe what the user is working on, and it will provide relevant recommendations based on that text. So in the example I just showed, this variable content was simply the entire text output from the rich text editor. No more developer work required than that. And we also have the ability to choose whether you're getting those saved filters from Assets View, from the author environment, or you can configure those via a property. I'll jump back for 1 second because I wanted to say, if you're interested in joining the Content Advisor beta, please take a picture of this QR code and you'll be able to sign up your team and get early access to all of this goodness. Lastly, after you've selected and found the perfect content for your use case, we have new open APIs that allow you to download both the originals of the asset as well as renditions. But let's say you're working on something where you want an instantly available web-ready rendition in a specific form factor, and you don't want to go through the whole process of redesigning and going through creative again. Well, that's where dynamic media comes in, and Deepa's going to show us that.
That's an amazing start. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Let's quickly talk about how you can unlock the benefits of dynamic media via Content Advisor in your downstream application. You can now preview and select your web-optimized variations of main asset or this asset which you want to select into your downstream application with quite an ease. With the power of dynamic media, you get to deliver faster and scalable experiences as through the dynamic media ability to deliver content at scale and speed. You get to choose the perfect fit for your use case. With the help of dynamic media, you can now skip any format or size-related limitation that the downstream application may be imposing while selecting an asset. Let's quickly realize this in 2 short demos. OK, so here a marketer wants to design a template, a email for an upcoming campaign. This is an email designer application where he wants to pick an asset which matches for this particular header section. He goes on to the asset, he goes on to the Content Advisor and wants to pull an asset of his choice. I'll just quickly hide this. Let's see the behavior when he tries to use this main asset. This is obviously not the desired experience because the asset is the main subject is not on the focus. Now, let's open the Quick Details panel, and within the Dynamic Media tab, the marketer can now preview the smart crops which are available for this main assets. He can quickly drag and drop the most perfect fit for his use case. Coming on to the second demo here, a creative wants to change the background for this particular design via Express. So he just triggers the replace workflow via the AEM Assets plugin and tries to look for an asset via the Content Advisor. OK, let's try using this asset. But he can't because the Express imposes a size limit of 80 megabytes while putting an asset on the canvas. Again, let's go into the dynamic media and try to bring the web-optimized rendition for this asset. See the huge benefit which you get in terms of the size without compromising on the limit, without compromising on the quality of the image. Let's quickly make this asset more suitable as a background by applying the image modifiers, which is a feature that dynamic media provides. And he's ready to go within no time. Just like we could skip the size limitation, the dynamic media helps you skip any format-related limitations as well. Coming back to the slides, OK, some of the key features that the Dynamic Media tab provides within the Content Advisor, you get to preview and select your base Dynamic Media renditions and smart crops. The tab is supports both the stack, the AEM Dynamic Media Scene7 and the Dynamic Media with OpenAPI stack. You get the ability to generate on-the-fly variations within no time. And it supports the standard image formats, the design authoring formats, and videos as well. Some of the prerequisites which you require to use this tab in Content Advisor, these are some of the actions which you require on the AEM-CS repository end. It has to be either Scene7 or the Dynamic Media with OpenAPI enabled. And your assets needs to be either published or approved from the repository. Lastly, you must create your image presets and smart crops to be able to preview and select them via the advisor panel. Moving on to how you can enable dynamic media in Content Advisor, it's a 3-step process. The first is to enable the tab. By default, this is available in the advisor. If you are on Asset Selector, you can pass in these to the detail panel and dynamic media props within the feature set, which Matt just showed. The key second step is to adjust your code to be able to generate dynamic media URL using the new selected media subobject, which we have introduced as part of the handle selection callback. And once your integration codes generate dynamic media URL, you can then code to consume them in the desired way. Let's quickly delve into what this selected media subobject is. So one of the key things to understand here is that the Content Advisor will not hand over you a pre-built dynamic media URL. Instead, we want the application to build them just like they prepare for any other API call. Instead, what the advisor will hand over you is the selection which you have done from the panel. So based on the dynamic media stack, your AEM-CS repository is configured with, and the option which are available on the panel, which is labeled as DM API style, the API style will get populated as either Scene7 or OpenAPI. Among the base preset and smart crop, only one will appear in the final object based on the selection done from the panel. And modifier is an optional array which will get populated as a key value pair only if the user has added them while using the panel. OK, so for the AEM DM Scene7 API style, where you want to choose a smart crop with smart crop, choose a smart crop with modifiers, your exported asset object will have information like your Scene7 file, your Scene7 domain, and the selected media object will have the smart crop key, the modifiers key, and the API style as Scene7. Similarly, for the dynamic media with OpenAPI URL, if you you intend to build a URL for the DM with OpenAPI, you get to choose the OpenAPI style from the panel, along with any of the combination. Here I am just showing your smart crop and modify example. Your asset object will have your repository ID, your selected media, your asset ID. Now, in the application code, you'll have to code in order to build your dynamic media URL based on your API style. This is because the Scene7 and the OpenAPI follow different URL format. So you'll have utility method, which will be building your Scene7 URL, as well as utility method for your DM OpenAPI URL. So in your in these methods, you will then use the Scene7 file, the Scene7 domain, and the selected media object to build a URL which conforms to the Scene7 style. Moving on to the DM with OpenAPI URL, from the exported asset object, you will make use of your selected media and the metadata to use properties like your repository ID, your asset ID, and the information from the selected media to build a DM OpenAPI conforming URL. And once you have done the selection, your code generates the appropriate dynamic media URL, you are now ready to use it in the desired way. So it could be an HTML image source tag, or a download. For download purposes, you can do a fetch call. With this, I'll end my presentation, and I'll call up Mathias to walk us through the content fragments. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Deepa. So one more thing at the end of the session here. I want to get back to, as Matt had mentioned, content fragments are supported in the Content Advisor as well, which is why Content Advisor is called Content Advisor and not just not Image Advisor. And if we go back to Content Advisor here, you see there's a content fragments pill, which gives you a nice overview of content fragments that are being surfaced by Content Advisor here. The first thing to notice that these are new dynamic tiles that will update with any content change that you make in the content fragment. So anytime you change an image or you delete the image, this will be reflected in this dynamic tile. Same thing if you edit the text in a content fragment, will be reflected here. So it's a very nice way to get a quick view into the content fragment right here in this tile view. But then the question becomes how to actually view the content fragment itself. And as you'll know, visualizing content fragments works only in two ways typically. Either you load it in the editor, but then there's no AM here, it's Content Advisor. Plus in the editor, it has the whole editor canvas around it with all the functions, which might not be desirable for certain business users. And the other alternative is to view content fragment as JSON, which can be very ugly for business users. So in order to improve that, we've added an entire new capability that I wanted to show, going into AM actually first. And I'm here in the content fragment UI, specifically in the content model tab. And you see here in the lower right, there's now the ability to upload HTML templates to AM that can be used together with a content fragment to create a fully styled rendering and visualization of a content fragment. You can very easily upload a new template from your system. Say here, for example, there are 2 templates on the system, and it creates a preview of this template, and it shows you the HTML code of this template. And the original origin, the origin of these templates, in fact, is code. So these templates will have to be hand-coded at the moment, and we're working on ways how to maybe automate this coming from Figma into AM. So you create your HTML template, and then importantly, you instrument the template with handlebar syntax that corresponds with the data type names in your content fragment. Just here, headline, detail, and call to action. And those templates you then upload to AM. You can actually, in this upload dialog, still change the HTML. and then save and persist the template here in AEM. And I won't do that because this template already exists. To then, when we go back to Content Advisor, and load the content fragments pill with the content fragments that we just saw, and we go to Frescopa, English, offers to this fragment here. You see there's now in Content Advisor a nice preview capability, in addition to a nice properties tab that we just added, but a preview capability which brings up a modal that creates a visualization of this content fragment. Firstly, with a generic template that exists in AEM and that can be used with any content fragment the user creates, to always be able to create a preview in such a table format here to show the key value pairs, so that users can also, for example, simply copy and paste content from content fragment here into their canvas. But also to get just an overview of the content for content QA, for example, before the content fragment is moved to subsequent groups in the process. But then also to preview a content fragment with these custom templates, these custom HTML templates that you can upload. And it creates a preview like this. And the nice thing is that if you have multiple templates in your system, you can visualize what your content fragment will look like for a certain placement in a certain channel. Say this is email, the other one is web, or one is web and the other one is mobile. You get a very nice visual impression of a content fragment in a very standard HTML rendering, which is HTML with inline CSS, that then can be used very easily outside of AEM if you want to use this banner here, for example, in another solution. And we're already talking with the AGO folks, for example, to be able to use banners like this here, HTML fragments essentially like this in AGO. And if you think this might look a little bit like experience fragment use cases in AEM, that is exactly where this is going, because we think this here is the future of experience fragments in a way that is not as tight to AEM as experience fragments are today, with CQ templates and core components and client libs for the CSS, but a very standard, neutral HTML with inline CSS that can be used in other places, including, of course, AEM pages with the corresponding components or blocks. So that's content fragment templates. It is in beta currently. We're in beta with one customer called Eli Lilly. If you have an interest in looking at this in more detail, please reach out. Very happy to talk. And let me get back to the slides to also remind everyone, where is the final slide? Is this here at the very end? To remind everyone of the Content Advisor beta, in context of which, or as part of which, you can also get access to this content fragment preview capability as well. So take a picture of the screen, of the QR code, and please reach out if you find this interesting. Thanks so much.